It only took one scene, just a few minutes on screen, to ignite a wave of speculation no one saw coming. An intense, emotionally charged moment between Caitríona Balfe and Sam Heughan quickly became the center of attention, not just because of its realism, but because of what people believed it might mean off-screen. The chemistry felt almost too convincing, too natural, and for some viewers, it crossed a line that blurred fiction and reality. And that's where the rumor began. What if this wasn't just acting, and what if someone close to Caitríona didn't see it that way? The scene itself wasn't out of place within the world of Outlander. The series has always been known for its deeply emotional storytelling, where physical intimacy is portrayed with a level of authenticity that few shows attempt. Sam and Caitríona have built their performances on trust, allowing their characters' relationship to feel raw, real, and fully lived in. But this particular moment felt different to some viewers, not because it was inappropriate, but because it felt so undeniably genuine. Fans quickly began reacting, sharing clips, screenshots, and reactions that focused not just on the scene, but on how it made him feel. Comments flooded in, describing the moment as too real, almost uncomfortable, and even hard to separate from reality. And as those reactions grew, so did the narrative that followed. Because when something feels that authentic, people start asking questions that go beyond the script. That's when the speculation took a more personal turn. Caitríona Balfe's real-life marriage to Tony McGill, something she has always kept private and protected, suddenly became part of the conversation. Without any confirmed statements, without any direct indication, the idea began to circulate that he might not be comfortable with scenes like this. It wasn't based on evidence, it was based on assumption, shaped by how people interpreted what they saw on screen. The rumor didn't start as a bold claim. It began quietly, in comment sections and discussion threads, where fans wondered how anyone could watch such a scene without feeling something more. From there, it evolved. Phrases like, "he must be upset," or, "this must be difficult," slowly turned into more definitive statements. And once those statements were repeated enough times, they began to feel like something closer to truth. What made the situation even more intense was how easily it fit into an existing narrative. Sam and Caitríona's on-screen chemistry has always been one of the most talked about aspects of the show. Over the years, that chemistry has led to countless rumors, theories, and interpretations about their relationship beyond the camera. So when a scene pushes that connection even further, it naturally feeds into those same ideas. At the same time, there was a detail that seemed to reinforce the speculation, even if unintentionally. Caitríona has always been selective about what she shares regarding her personal life, choosing to keep her marriage largely out of the spotlight. That absence of visible context created space for assumptions to grow. Without direct insight into how she and her husband navigate these aspects of her career, people began filling in the gaps themselves. Some fans began pointing to the emotional intensity of the scene as something that couldn't simply be dismissed as acting. They argued that the level of connection required to perform it so convincingly must come from somewhere real. And while that idea is rooted in admiration for their performances, it also blurs the line between character and actor in a way that can lead to misunderstanding. Others pushed back, reminding people that this is exactly what professional actors are trained to do, to create believable emotion, to make moments feel authentic without them reflecting real-life dynamics. They emphasized that scenes like this are carefully choreographed, discussed, and approached with professionalism, even when they appear spontaneous on screen. But even with that perspective, the conversation didn't slow down. Because once a rumor takes hold, especially one tied to emotion and personal relationships, it becomes difficult to contain. It grows through repetition, through interpretation, through the natural human tendency to connect what we see with what we imagine might be happening behind the scenes. Now, as the discussion continues to spread, the focus is no longer just on the scene itself. It has shifted towards something much larger, a question about how far viewers are willing to extend what they see on screen into real life. And as that question lingers, one thing becomes clear. This wasn't just about a single moment in a show, it was about how easily that moment could be transformed into something else entirely. As the speculation continued to grow, one key detail remained impossible to ignore. there was never any confirmed reaction from Tony McGill himself. No statement, no public comment, no indication that he had responded to the scene in any way. And yet, the idea that he was upset had already taken on a life of its own, repeated so often that it began to feel like fact rather than assumption. This is where the narrative starts to shift. Because without direct confirmation, everything being discussed exists entirely in interpretation. The scene was real, the chemistry was real, but the reaction being attributed to Caitríona's husband was not something anyone had actually heard from him. It was a conclusion built from emotion, not evidence. Some fans began to step back and look at the situation more realistically. In the world of acting, especially in a show like Outlander, scenes of intimacy are not spontaneous or uncontrolled. They are carefully planned, choreographed, and approached with clear boundaries and communication. Actors, directors, and production teams all work together to ensure that what appears natural on screen is actually the result of professional structure behind the scenes. From that perspective, the idea that such scenes would automatically create tension in real-life relationships starts to feel less certain. Many actors and their partners understand the nature of the work, the difference between performance and reality. It's not about emotion in the personal sense, it's about storytelling, about bringing characters to life in a way that feels believable to the audience. At the same time, it's easy to understand why the rumor gained traction. The intensity of the scene, combined with the long-standing fascination with Sam and Caitríona's chemistry, created the perfect conditions for speculation. When something feels that real, it challenges the boundary between fiction and reality in a way that invites people to question what they're seeing. But that's exactly where the misunderstanding begins. Because what feels real isn't always real in the way people assume. Acting at this level is designed to create that illusion, to make audiences believe in the connection, to feel the emotion as if it exists beyond the screen. And when that illusion is successful, it can be difficult to separate it from the lives of the people involved. There's also a deeper layer to consider, the role of privacy. Caitríona has always been intentional about keeping her personal life out of the spotlight, especially when it comes to her marriage. That choice creates a gap, and in the absence of information, people often fill that gap with assumptions. Not because they intend to mislead, but because they're trying to make sense of what they see. Some fans have started to recognize that this situation says more about perception than reality. It highlights how quickly a narrative can form when emotion, curiosity, and incomplete information come together. A single scene becomes a starting point, a rumor builds, and before long, a story exists that feels complete, even if it isn't grounded in fact. What makes this moment important isn't whether the rumor is true or false, but how easily it became believable. It shows how powerful storytelling can be, not just within a show, but in the way audiences interpret the people behind it. It also reveals how fragile the line is between admiration for a performance and assumptions about real life. Now, as the conversation begins to settle, the focus shifts once again. Not on whether Caitríona's marriage has been affected, but on how quickly that idea was accepted without confirmation. And in that reflection, a different kind of understanding begins to emerge. Because in the end, the most surprising part of this story isn't the scene itself, or even the rumor that followed. It's how easily we can mistake something that feels real for something that actually is. Because in the end, the most surprising part of this story isn't the scene itself, or even the rumor that followed. It's how easily we can mistake something that feels real for something that actually is.